Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Keisha Ducree, and I have with me today the owner of Soul Life Travel, Sadie Jordan. Welcome, Sadie. As you know, I am collaborating with Soul Life Travel to bring the first cultural immersion trip for families, and that is our trip to the Afro-Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. And so I'm glad to have you join her. She is a wonderful planner, and we get a chance to talk and meet her and talk about Puerto Viejo, where the families will be going this August from 13th to the 19th. So, Sadie, welcome. Happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born in Connecticut, raised in Cambridge, Mass. And it's funny because everyone says, "Oh, are there Black people in Boston?" Yes, I'm one of them. Me and Bobby Brown. Yeah, so I was raised in a very diverse area. Cambridge. I went to Cambridge and Latin High School, which was a great place to get my foundation. I mean, I had all types of teachers, Black, white, gay, lesbian, everyone under the rainbow was teaching us at my school, which really gave me insight into like civil rights movements, race relations, social justice, along with my amazing family, who really raised me up into like learning about social justice. With that, I had really big shoes to fill with the women in my family, particularly my mom, my aunts. They were on the front lines with human rights. They were social workers. They were just doing amazing things in their careers. And I was a little bit lost. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have this major passion to be a social worker, which was like the legacy for me that I should do. I didn't feel, I don't want to say I didn't feel worthy, but I mean, these were real big shoes to fill. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that. After a traumatic car accident that I had when I was living in Atlanta, my aunt, she asked me if I wanted to go back to visit Costa Rica. My family, my mom's family is Costa Rican. My dad's family is African American. And when I would visit Costa Rica, I didn't really see a lot of people who looked like me. First of all, where I grew up, there were hardly any Costa Ricans, like my family, and that was it. And then the ones that were there, they weren't my color. You know, my mom's family's not my color. And though I grew up in like a very Latin community with Puerto Ricans and Dominicans and things, I just didn't see anyone who looked Costa Rican and looked like me. So when we came over to the Caribbean side, I mean, I could feel it in my bones. Like my whole life changed. I got passion. I said the passion was get back here. The passion was live here and figure out a way to do it, which started me on the journey that we'll talk about this evening.
That's a perfect segue to my question of why Soul Life Travel. You came there, you said, this is the place I want to be, and you decided to start a tour company. And what was the motivation to do a tour company?
So, like I said, when I came to Puerto Viejo, my world changed. I said, I know where I want to do, but let's kind of backtrack a little bit. When I came with my aunt, we had a very clear itinerary. It was to go to Arenal, where the volcanoes are, to Manuel Antonio, where there's beautiful beaches, and to
I've done that.
To spend some time.
Yeah, that's what you do.
That's what you do, like that classic Costa Rican, that golden triangle, classic itinerary of Costa Rica, right? And there was a flood. So we were in this little car and we're getting to Manuel Antonio. So we're trying to drive through this. We would have been underwater. We would have been fully submerged in water. So we said, fine, we have to go back to my grandparents' house in San Jose. And my grandfather, he wasn't a man of, he passed away, but he wasn't like a man of many words. He was cutting up fruit at the table. We had this big giant map because we had a couple of days left, and we were like, okay, well, where are we gonna go? So my aunt was like, we should go to the Caribbean side. And my grandfather, he kind of looked up from the table and he was like, he said three things. He said, don't go there. It rains, it floods, and there's lots of crime. And we were like, well, we're going because there's nowhere else for us to go. So see you when we get back. Love you. Gotta go. So we go over, we come over here, and again, I am like, this is where I should be, right? I saw people who looked like me. It was the first time I actually felt really Costa Rican. I could say I am from here, and there's a place here, even though, you know, my mother wasn't born in that area. There's a place here that I can say, look, people look like me over here, right? Like I can say, I can feel Costa Rican. Now that you hear, it rains, it floods, there's lots of crime, is something that has been historically said about the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. And a lot of households in Costa Rica and a lot of guidebooks in Costa Rica about Costa Rica on the internet, when you look up Limon area or you look up the Caribbean side, it's going to give a lot of negatives. And that is because of the history of this area and the oppression and the systematic amputation of the economic growth of Costa Rica for the Caribbean side. Why? You know, we can say racism definitely played a part in that. Biasy definitely played a part in that. The historically framework of the country played a part in that. 2006 is the first time I came. I was hooked. So every year, or I came back 1 year later, I spent about 3 months out here. I would continue to spend more time out here. And I decided that I was going to go to school for travel tourism management. There was a solo tour that I did 1 year after, and there was this girl from Switzerland, and she asked to use my computer, and she was doing a resume. And I said, well, what are you doing your resume for? And she said, I'm going to do an internship for my degree in travel tourism. I said, there's a degree for traveling? There's a degree for tourism? Sign me up. Where do I sign up? Well, where I signed up was back home in Boston. I was living in Atlanta at the time, and I went to Boston, and they had an extensive programs, not only one, but tons of programs for travel tourism in Boston. When I tell you this was divine, it was divine intervention, divine timing. Everything was supposed to happen. So I go to school in Boston, and I had no idea. I said, I want to start a hostel. I want to have a hostel in Costa Rica. That's what it was supposed to be. I started working in everything you could think about in hospitality. In hotels, I worked for the Ritz-Carlton. I worked for TripAdvisor. Like I worked for Oddly Travel. Some of the most well-known companies in the world for travel. And I started honing my craft. I started learning all I could. I started realizing that I don't see any Black people on these travel guides. I don't see any Black people on these companies marketing. I don't see itineraries that are speaking to Black people. And I know Black people travel because I'm one of them, right? So I would go to these meetings because they were thinking, oh, she's so cute. She's so sweet. Oh, right. Yeah, right. We travel. So I'm like, they get me in the interview and they're like, oh yeah, this girl, she's well-bred. She's well-spoken. She's cute. We definitely want her on our team. Then they find out they got bottlenecks on their team. And I'm like, I'm going in there and I'm like, listen, why aren't there no Black people on your marketing materials? Why are we going to Paris and we're not going to Josephine Baker's house? What is going on? And why every time we're with Black people in South Africa is somebody giving you a drink or something? Like, I know there's more culture. You're dancing for you, or like, why aren't we going into the hood? Like and you know, why aren't we in Costa Rica visiting Puerto Viejo? And I would get met with fierce resistance. And it would be like, oh, Black people don't travel. They're not part of our bottom line. They're not spending money on travel. And it was I was part of this very new grassroots Black travel movement. And I'm like, no, we're traveling. We are. So I remember having a meeting with the CEO of a well-known travel company, open door policy. So I went, they got open door policies. I'm going in. I went in, I closed the door.
Travel company that shall not be named.
A travel company that shall not be named, honey. I opened that door, I went in and I closed the door. And I had a PowerPoint presentation for this man. I had statistics. Look, we traveling, boo. You could be on this train. Like, come on, like, let's do this. You could be the first company to roll this out. This is amazing. This is in 2019. Okay. Very important that it's 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
Looking at
what happened.
My cute little PowerPoint presentation. They're just starting to roll out their diversity, equity, inclusion. Mind you, it was run by a white man and white women.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to
familiar.
I had to threaten the company to get on the board because I'm like, I know I'm not the only Black person in this whole company, and y'all ain't putting me on the diversity, equity, inclusion board. So they put me on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did put me on. And so I close the door, I go in there, and he's like, I will never forget him saying there's key things that I'll never forget. My grandfather saying what he said to me. I'll never forget what this man said to me. He said, if we don't do it, will they still travel with us? Will they still spend money with us? Will Black people still spend money? If we change our marketing, if we don't make any changes, we don't add any of these itineraries we are talking about and doing all this and doing all that, will they still buy our tours? And heartbreakingly, I said yes, because there's no choice. And at that moment, I realized I had to be the choice. I had to be the choice. I had to be a place where we could take the detective work out of Black people's hands and finding experiences that looked like them and resonated with them, and that they could see themselves in a respectful way, that they could be treated in a respectful way. And so
absolutely,
right after that, two pivotal things happened. COVID guts the entire travel industry that I was working in. And as a travel professional, I was one of the first to lose my job in the travel industry, right? Okay. I was laid off. I had a lot of time on my hands at home. I was getting unemployment. So I took that money along with our stimulus checks, and I started putting everything into Soul Life Travel. I need to create a business that connects Black people, someone like yourself, right? That connects Black people with the diaspora in authentic, non-transactional ways, right? I want us to see ourselves as brother and sister and to get to know each other again. So I took it way back. I was doing trips here and there for people, for Cuba, for South Africa, for Costa Rica, but I took it back to Puerto Viejo because I wanted to just say, okay, let me just focus on Puerto Viejo first and then expand. So we didn't have any clients because it was in the middle of COVID, right? So we didn't have any clients. And then George Floyd happened.
Yes.
When George Floyd happened, a funny thing happened. Because right before that, all these companies that I was working with, again, fierce resistance. No, doors closed. No. Then, when George Floyd died, us entrepreneurs, as Black entrepreneurs, I say it was sacrificial death so that we could be learning and deciding that we're going to start our own businesses. And there were avenues for us and money for us to be able to do that. When everything happened, companies were scrambling. My phone was ringing off the hook for my expertise. They wanted to get Black travelers. They wanted the reckoning. They wanted to apologize. They wanted to have Black people. They wanted to do Black marketing. They wanted to do this. They wanted to do that. And I got a job because we weren't getting any clients. We weren't having any clients. I was going to start working on that job in like a week, right? A reporter from Travel Noir reached out to me and asked to do an interview about my company. We had no clients at the time because it was COVID, but I took the call and I did the interview. Yeah. So right before that, I had a meeting with my team and I said, hey, I'm going to have to close the doors on our non-existent travel company because we have no clients. And I'm going to go start working for this high-end company who the owner asked me when I applied, why do you have so much confidence about yourself? And I hope that your confidence can, I hope it's worth its weight in gold because I'm going to pay you this money and I hope you can do it. So that's what I was about to walk into. And, and so I took a little trip over to Sedona and in Arizona. And as I was looking out into the beautiful scenery of Sedona, my phone starts pinging like crazy. And mind you, at the moment I had about 200 Instagram followers, and those were my family and friends. And in like less than, 20, 30 minutes, our Instagram went over 1,000 people because they had seen the article that Travel Noir put out. After that, I had to make a quick decision on what I was going to do. Was I going to start working again 9 to 5 at a company that didn't value me, didn't value my community, didn't value us? Or I was going to take a chance and risk it all and go create this travel company that I was dreaming about. And I took the chance. And my community, not only here in Puerto Viejo, but in and my African American community, my Afro-European community, my all over the world has helped to keep me afloat and to support my business, and so that we can give these types of experiences and we don't have to beg anybody to give us a seat at the table. In the spirit of Marcus Garvey, we are creating this table and doing it and saying who we want to have at our table. So that is the story of how it was created.
What is your favorite place? What is your favorite place in Puerto Viejo and why?
My favorite place in Puerto Viejo will be Liberty Hall. It's right in the middle, right in the center of Puerto Viejo. There's only a few Liberty Halls left in the world. That many of these Liberty Halls were gifted by the Pan-African movement to different areas, and some of them by Marcus Garvey himself, to different areas around the world. There aren't many that are left, and there aren't many that are even in the world in general. So we have two. We have one in Limon and we have one in Puerto Viejo. It's very impactful for me because when you walk into Liberty Hall, you feel the history, you feel the roots and culture that is Puerto Viejo. That is what Puerto Viejo, or Old Harbor, is what it was actually called, who it was and what it stood for. The area, the Talamanca region, just stood for resistance by our indigenous brothers and sisters, and it stood for resistance and self-determination by the second coming, which is our Jamaican and Afro-Caribbean descendant brothers and sisters. So it's just powerful. You walk in and it's the same wood that was built when it was gifted over 100 years ago. The same wood, the same pictures in there of the town, the murals of Marcus Garvey.
What do folks get wrong about Puerto Viejo? What do they get wrong?
So yeah, they get wrong that, it rains. I mean, we could be sitting in straight up sun, and you look on the weather channel on your phone or like the weather, and it says that it's pouring down rain, and I'm like looking at it. I mean, the conspiracy is so deep, you know, it goes like all over that don't come over here, it rains all the time. And yeah, we get showers, but everywhere in Costa Rica gets showers. It's the
It
rainforest.
rains, right?
You know?
Yes.
So like we don't have any more crime than in San Jose. We don't have any more crime than in Guanacaste, right? We have, and in some places in San Jose, you don't want to be out there at night. It's not safe for you at all to be out there at night. Where it's different here in Puerto Viejo. It's a very walkable city. It's great for solo travelers, especially women. Obviously, you want to have some common sense about yourself, but like, it's no worse than anywhere else. And so that's like the major misconception that we're having.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Okay, Dr.
Thank
Keisha,
you.
it was great talking to you.
Good talking to you too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.